All right. Well, welcome in. Good afternoon. We're here at the Bartlesville Public Library, and my name is Jason Hall, and I manage the fitness center up at the hospital here in town at Jane Phillips Medical Center. We're located on the 9th floor, and full service gym up there, all that good stuff. I'll dive into that in a little bit later. But today what we're here to talk about is group exercise. Okay, so first of all, just with the members of the audience and online, if you can hear and are participating online, watching online, first of all, thanks for joining in. And my question would be, has anybody tried group exercise classes before? Ooh, got a few hands out there, head nod, okay. What kind of classes have we tried?
Yoga, Tai Chi, body pump, body flow.
If you can't hear Cheryl, she's just listing off the YMCA group exercise schedule. Excellent, excellent. So she's talking things like yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, body pump. That's kind of a popular one for sure. No Zumba, no dancing?
I've tried it, but
Okay, cool. She gave a thumbs down, which is something we'll talk about later as well. Maybe we don't like that class, though. What do we do, right? All right, Philip, what about you, man?
Let's see, Tai Chi, I've done several group classes that are just kind of general fitness.
Okay.
Mostly bodyweight, light experience.
Okay, so he said some general fitness type classes, kind of working a variety of elements and things like that, a little bit of weights, a bit of stretching, movement, and some Tai Chi. That's always a popular one. Yeah. So we're going to talk about a lot of those different types of classes. That's kind of what we're here to do today. A lot of times, though, it's kind of interesting. There's a few things that come along with when you talk about group exercise classes. Sometimes we get this little image right here. Mr. Richard Simmons, we're all familiar with that guy and what he was doing back in his time, his heyday. But real bright, energized, colorful, a lot of energy. So kind of fun, right? And so that's really what he was going for, right? He was setting that environment, setting that tone, that mindset of we're gonna have fun in here, right? We're gonna move our bodies and have a little fun. Sometimes we also get this image, right? You look over here, and it's like people on a trampoline with a bar, and they're bouncing around like crazy, going as fast and hard as they can. So you have those kind of styles, right? Doesn't look quite so much fun. Maybe it's fun. I don't know. But sometimes that high intensity type stuff is the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about group exercise, which is certainly an element that we'll discuss. But overall, that's not every class, right? My yoga, my Tai Chi people out there, they know that like that's a lot different than yoga and Tai Chi, right? And so there's a broad range of types of classes, intensity levels, different things like that. Even the environments can be quite different, right? So we're going to touch on all this kind of this variation in this world of fitness. All right. And so we're just going to jump right in. So first of all, we're going to just kind of define group exercise. Kind of sounds like it is what it is, but keep in mind it is a structured workout routine, and we want it to be led by a qualified instructor. And I think that's an important thing to note. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, you might have a real fitness enthusiast that might teach a class somewhere. Doesn't necessarily mean they're certified or qualified in terms of through like an organization or something like that. Like I'm certified through the American Council of Exercise. There's ACSM, different things, NSCA. So a lot of different acronyms out there, but there's certain organizations that we get certified through that teach us how to teach these classes and things like that. So something to kind of remember, keep in your back pocket when you're looking into what kind of class that you want to join. Okay, so who's the instructor? But led by a qualified instructor and designed for smaller to larger groups. So we can have some smaller groups mixed in there, but generally group exercise, you kind of think of maybe 10, 20 people, somewhere in that range, maybe even a little bit larger depending on what you're getting into. Typically your time is going to be anywhere from about 30 minutes up to about an hour and a half, 90 minutes, okay? Generally they won't go much longer than that. I would say average time is 45 minutes to 60 minutes, okay? And then oftentimes they're accompanied by music to help boost the energy, set the environment, boost our mood, get us motivated, all that good stuff. So again, kind of Mr. Richard Simmons back there, he was trying to get us in the right mindset to have fun, be high energy, and move and get after it, right? And so that's generally what group exercise will consist of. So let's talk about some of the benefits of taking a group exercise class. So first of all, it's kind of mentioned that in that previous slide, but structured routine, right? So number one, we get a set routine. The instructor has built something, hopefully it makes sense, right? With all my classes, we always start with a nice movement warm-up, okay? Get our bodies moving, get the blood pumping a little bit. Then we go into a little core work sometimes, or maybe we'll jump right into the actual workout. But there's a plan, there's a strategy, there's some reason as to why I'm doing this versus this at this time, okay? So there's a routine and structure to it. And then lastly, we'll finish up with a little cool down, right? Maybe even a little bit of stretching. And so with that, we get specific outcomes, and that's kind of the key point there. The routines help lead us to specific outcomes for either that particular class or over a long range of time, we're trying to elicit some specific response to that, okay? We also get, again, that professional guidance, right? So that's a great benefit of classes. They're often included in your membership, or even if you're paying a little extra, like maybe a $5 or $10 class participation fee, no big deal, but you get that professional guidance. So an instructor that's certified leading you through, and that means hopefully it's going to be safe and hopefully it's going to be real effective, right? Because again, they're planning things out to make sure that we get a certain response to that movement or that overall class. And so, and safety is a big thing, right? We're doing things, you know, the instructor might come by and say, hey, that looks a little heavy, or hey, let's adjust our knee position or something like that. So a lot less risk of injury during a class time, okay? And then you have community support. So this is part of the group part, right? So group exercise, we talked a little bit about the exercise, the group component, so we have that community support, right? So we have connection, right? We can meet new people, or maybe some of our friends are already in there, so we're joining them, having a good time, right? Gives us another opportunity to meet people and connect. And then we also have the support element, right? Because I can guarantee in the classes that I teach, somebody's gone for like a week. They're like, where were you? What are you doing? They're checking in, they're texting them, right? Every morning I get asked, who's not going to be here and why? Right? And so everybody's really concerned, they're caring about each other, and it's really fun. We're very supportive of each other, and so that's a great benefit of the community. In fact, I have ladies that have met in class that now they go, you know, do activities together outside of the gym. Might meet up for lunch or go to concerts, different things like that. Then moving on to number 4, we have accountability. Okay? So this one's kind of cool because you have the accountability of the class itself, right? Typically classes are going to run at certain days, certain times, and it's pretty consistent all the way through the year. Might take a break here and there, right? But in general, those classes are going to be there anytime you're expecting it to be there. So you have the consistency of the class itself. Then you also have the consistency with the coach, right? I'm recognizing if you're coming a lot, or are you missing periodically, or we're missing long stretches, right? What's going on? How you feeling? Is something happening? So you get that check-in time with the coach. And then, like I said, mentioned with the peers as well, right? So they're all checking in on each other as well throughout, which is really helpful to the coach in that sense too, because you know, I have 10 to 15 people at any given day in a class, and so it's hard for me to check in with everybody. But I might check in with a couple, and then they're telling me, well, so-and-so over here, she's, you know, having a sore knee, or maybe something's going on in her family life, like maybe something's going on with their spouse. And so that just gives me a little insight into where that individual is at, and I haven't even talked to her, right? And so that's kind of a nice benefit there. Then number 5, we have enhances motivation, right? And again, kind of going back to that, checking to make sure my slide changed. I changed my slide. We're still looking at Richard Simmons. But with enhancing motivation, right? Again, going back to that Richard Simmons example, though, we come in, we've got the mood set, the environment, right? We're motivated, excited to be there. Cheryl comes in every evening for her workouts, excited to be there. She's like, yeah, let's rock and roll. That's right. But no, it's awesome whenever you get a group of people that feel the same way. They're all motivated to come in. They show up for a reason, and the energy is good. Okay? And then you also have within the class itself opportunities for challenges, because that's one thing that I like to do with my classes that I teach is provide a chance for somebody to do something that maybe they weren't expecting they could do, or give them an opportunity to maybe push their limits a little bit, right? And so you get those kind of mixed into the class time, and so that's always exciting to see people not only take on those challenges, but overcome them as well. And then lastly, adding variety, okay? One comment I get from my class participants all the time is they love the variety that I incorporate into the week-to-week setup. So we come in, we have specific objectives we're trying to meet each day that we have this class and that class, but at the same time, I mix it up pretty much each day, right? So we're not necessarily doing the same routine or all the same exercises week in and week out. We're doing a lot of different variations, maybe some different equipment uses, things like that, and so they really enjoy not knowing kind of what to expect when they walk in. Right? They have a general idea of what they're going to get, but they don't know how they're going to get there, right? And so that's awesome for them, and it's fun for me, keeps it exciting as well. Okay, so it helps to really limit that monotony of maybe just showing up to the gym, doing the same routine over and over, or even in a class setting, just coming in and doing the same thing. Like, you would think that maybe with yoga or Pilates, like I teach Pilates class, that we would do the same thing every day. And that's not exactly true. We might do some of the same movements each time. I do the same warm-up of every day. But when we get into the workout part, we're maybe making those little tweaks to those movements or adding a weight to a certain movement that we've done the day before, right? And so it gives them that little switch up and keeps it kind of fun and creative for them. Okay? So some of the benefits of group exercise. All right, so let's dive into just different types, different styles. We've kind of touched on some of them, right? Especially this first group. I think that has a big place right now, and it's very popular right now. And that's, excuse me, and that's your mind-body stuff, right? So yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi. By the way, you can see the note on the slide. I'm going to kind of go through these from a less intense perspective to a more intense perspective. So as we dive deeper, things are getting harder, things are getting more up-tempo, things are getting more intense. Okay? So the lightest are typically going to be your mind-body classes, like I said, yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, things like that. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's not challenges within those, but just the overall intensity of the workout is pretty light, right? Low impact, we're not breathing real hard, real heavy, we're not sweating a lot typically, things of that nature that would kind of signify this is pretty challenging or high intensity. Okay? Different stretch classes, different places will offer different stretching type classes. So a lot of good options out there. One thing we'll touch on here in a little bit, but just going to mention it with this, is there's starting to be kind of a hybrid, right? So we got hybrid cars, and now we got hybrid classes. Right, so they're doing maybe yoga mixed with a little cardio burn, like maybe they stand up and start doing some knee highs or something real fast for a certain amount of time, and then they go back into a yoga move. So there's different elements there. They might split the class kind of 50-50. Half of it we're going to do some cardio, half of it we're going to finish off with some yoga moves. So they're starting to combine some of that, and people are enjoying that. Again, I think a lot of that has to do with the variety that they're getting in within that time frame of the class. And so a lot of good options there. Most gyms are going to offer some regimen of a yoga, Pilates, or a Tai Chi. There's different places in town, in Bartlesville specifically, that do all three of these versions or one of the three. And so certainly encourage you to get online, research that, see where you might have some opportunities to go. Okay. Moving on to aqua aerobics. Let's try that. Aquatic exercise, right? And so again, this is pretty light to moderate, right? Because it can get a little bit intense when you're getting in, depending on the class that you're taking. But the benefit of aqua aerobics is that there's zero impact, right? So if we come in, we got arthritic knees or shoulders or a bad back or a hip, and I can jump in the pool, light as a feather, right? Floating, we can move well, right? So zero impact makes a great benefit for these types of classes. And they do offer, I believe, some at the YMCA. Okay, so certainly encourage you to check that out if you're listening or see you here today and you're like, man, I need something, but it's not going to hurt my joints. That might be a good option for you. Okay. And then the cool thing about the water itself is that it's adjustable resistance. You can kind of see in the little picture they're using these little floaty dumbbells, right? So you can add a little weight even to the water itself. And so you can work those muscles a little bit more than just even with our arms with no weight, right? So definitely a cool option there. Then we're going into, I kind of categorize it just as senior fitness, okay? Now, with that, light to moderate. So you can still, again, we might be a little bit older on the age scale, but we can still work hard, right? Whether it's the whole class or in moments during the class. But typically your general senior fitness levels or classes are going to be kind of at a light to moderate pace, light to moderate intensity. And so you're not moving real fast. You might have moments where you bump it up a little bit or challenge the weight a little bit, things like that. But one class that I teach is Silver Sneakers, and that's kind of a well-known brand throughout the country. And so with that, we start with a little bit of standing exercise, so it's not fully just seated in the chair the whole time. We stand up, we move around, do some different things, then we sit in the chair, then we do some strength training, then we get back up, do a little more strength training, or maybe some balance training, okay, things like that. And then we sit back down one more time, kind of finish out with a little arm work, and then usually we cool it down and stretch. So get a nice range of areas that we're working on, and overall they get a really good workout, but it's not at any given time, it's not super intense, and that's kind of where we want to focus with those senior fitness classes. And keep in mind, and we'll talk about this later, but what are you looking for to get out of the class? Because with Silver Sneakers, we don't necessarily touch on just one thing, we kind of hit different elements. But there might be a senior aerobic class that you could go look into and take. And that's going to get your heart rate up a little bit, get the blood pumping some, right? And so that might elicit a different effect that you're looking for versus taking the Silver Sneaker class. So just something to keep in mind there. And then moving into strength training classes. So again, kind of a broad term, but this kind of goes back to people coming together wanting to do strength training specifically. So they're trying to improve their strength, work on their muscles and their joints, and so they're going to use things more like free weights, dumbbells, maybe some cables, different things like that. Okay, and so they're trying to elicit that specific response. Circuits are really popular with this particular style of training. This is what I would say is my Monday, Wednesday, Friday class. This is pretty much what we do. We use a circuit and we mix in some strength training. The cool thing about circuit training is that not only are you working your strength, but you're also getting a little aerobic effect mixed in there. So you're working your heart and your lungs a little bit as well. But again, it's not like we're going out and getting on the bicycle for 40 minutes. Right? We're moving, we're working our muscles, taking little breaks here and there, things like that. So it's not necessarily a consistent, steady state exercise that we're doing. Right? The other cool thing about strength type classes is that you are learning proper movement mechanics, right? So I'm going around the room, I'm checking people's technique on their squats, on their lunges, on their deadlifts, on their swings, on their shoulder presses, on their chest presses, on their rows, right? So we're making sure that we're doing things safe and effectively, right? And then, like I said, these are specifically geared more towards improving our strength. So, you know, if somebody was coming into me and they were like, hey, I want to improve my aerobic fitness, right? I want to get it to a point where I can do a 5K. Well, I'm not necessarily going to suggest that they start coming to my Monday, Wednesday, Friday class when we're doing more strength-oriented stuff. Might be a good add-on. They could certainly come and get some benefit out of it, but their primary training needs to be spent on maybe running or jogging outside, walking outside, or on the treadmill, something like that, right? So they need to do something different than the class. So, same thing here. If I want to work my muscles and get stronger, great opportunity. If we are looking for something a little different, maybe look into something else. And speaking of something else, now we're getting into some of the more intense variations and some of the ones that probably elicit a little more cardiovascular effect, work our heart and our lungs, a little less on the strength component. But first, let's talk about boot camps, because that's a nice combination of both. You're going to get stronger, but you're also going to get what we call fitter, or more fit, right? And so our fitness level is going to improve here. That's our heart and our lung health, right? And so boot camps are generally more of a military style training setup, okay? So think about squats and lunges and maybe picking things up and moving them from here to there, or walking with weights around, things like that, maybe jumping, climbing, crawling, right? All those crazy fun things that people are like, yeah, I haven't done that in like 20 years, right? So those types of movements, that's what boot camps are. So it's definitely a mindset, right? There's a particular, like I said, this is getting down a little more specific to what am I looking for? Do I like that military style, kind of somebody yelling at me going, hey, come on, you can do this, you got this, push it, let's go, you know? Or do I want somebody that's gonna, hey, it's okay, you got it, come on. Those are two different training techniques, right? Two different energy levels. And so maybe that's for you, maybe it's not, okay? And so boot camps are, like I said, a little more intense on that mental and physical element. But like I said, it combines cardio and strength training. And the cool thing about boot camps as well is that they can be a mixture of a lot of different things. You know, I do basically a boot camp kind of workout around the hospital outside. But then I could go to a jungle gym at the park and do a different type of boot camp style training. So you can, depending on your environment and what you have to work with, because a lot of times boot camps are outside. More recently, spaces have gotten bigger inside and things like that. Equipment has become a little more available, accessible. And so a little more shift towards indoor boot camps that are available out there, but still primarily mostly outside. And like I said, you kind of work with what you got, okay? So it keeps it fun, keeps it challenging for sure. And if you like getting outside a little bit, that's a good option as well. All right, so let's go in, don't need to click. So let's go into indoor cycling or spinning. Has anybody tried a cycle or spin class before? Yeah, we've got a few hands out there. Yeah. So pretty intense, right? Yeah. Hard? Yeah. Yeah. It's not like you get on your bike and kind of cruise control, right? Leisurely riding. No. Indoor cycling generally is going to be pretty intense. So I got it listed as kind of a more moderate to high intensity level. The cool thing about cycling is your good instructors, they're going to link up your ride with the music. So you're kind of getting the music, you get that motivation, you're hearing it, and then you're sequenced into choreographed with what you're doing on the bicycle. Right? So the music starts to ramp up, you're getting harder, you're going climbing faster, or running, cycling at a quicker pace, things like that. And so it really helps to drive the overall class, the music does. But it's definitely geared towards improving our cardio endurance, so our fitness level, working our heart and our lungs, right? But it's also very geared towards working the strength of the lower body. So our legs are going to get stronger as well. And again, they change up the way you ride, right? So there's a style of riding or different styles of riding. So let's say when you go up a hill, you're going to be really pumping with those legs, right? And so I kind of liken it to doing a squat or a step up. You're doing that repeatedly for about a minute or so or however long, right? And so you're constantly working those leg muscles. So when you get done, your legs are pretty exhausted from that. And so a lot of strength improvement can be seen riding the bike along with our heart and our lung improvement, right? And again, there's a lot of variety with cycling classes. I've seen some that are a little more softer paced, I would say. So they're geared towards maybe doing more of like what you might see, think of when you think of people like biking outside where it's just kind of, they're going for a long time though, right? So that class might be geared towards a minute and 15, maybe a minute, or an hour and 15 minutes, or maybe an hour and a half. And you're kind of seeing what you can do, how hard you can work over that duration though. So again, that intensity level is maybe a little bit lower versus you jump in, they do high intensity classes on the bike. So you're pumping it out for 20, 30 seconds, going as hard as you can, and take a little breather, and then do it again. Just repeat that, right? So you can get real intense real quickly based on what the class is that you're choosing. So again, be very research minded when it comes to looking at spin classes, and don't be afraid to talk to the instructor, and we'll talk about that here momentarily, but don't be afraid to ask them or ask other participants, hey, how hard is this class? Is it really going to drive me, or is it kind of more of a cruise control, right? And that can help you decide what you want to do there. And then lastly, there's high intensity interval training. So again, this was all the rage not that long ago. Still very popular, right? But these are basically short bursts of very high output coupled with short recovery periods, and then you just repeat that sequence. The good and bad of high intensity, the good, it works really well. You can get a lot of benefit out of it. The bad is pretty high intense, right? So it's very challenging, puts you in kind of an uncomfortable zone, okay? If you're doing it correctly. And so, just be aware of that, okay? But like I said, this is really more about really pushing our conditioning level, our fitness level, and also maybe for performance purposes. So if I'm, a weekend volleyball player or a weekend, pickleballer, right? And I want to get better at that, improve my performance just overall physically, then I might incorporate a little high intensity training just to allow myself to see those improvements and be able to work harder during those game bouts, right? So kind of it's a very high energy, high effort type class. We don't really offer that at the gym where I'm at, but a lot of options out there to look into that. Okay. Now so those are kind of your generalized types of and styles of classes. Let's specify just a little bit deeper here. So we're going to look at some kind of more niche type classes here. Things that are a little bit more, this is exactly what it is and this is what you're going to get, right? So number one, there's dance style classes, right? So we kind of mentioned things like Zumba. There's a lot of different Latin type styles that people are doing. There's a whole slew of dance style classes. And there's even, you could even classify like ballroom dancing. I think I saw something like that on the YMCA's group exercise schedule. So there's some sort of ballroom type dancing. So there's a lot of options out there, and then that's cool because you can just kind of browse through and see like, oh, I've always been interested in ballroom dancing, or oh, I've heard a lot of good things about Zumba and how fun it is, right? So maybe I'll check that out, right? So dance style classes are generally high energy, they're fun, right? You're moving around constantly and just doing different movements. You'll do choreographed movements to the music, right? So again, it's very dance oriented. So they're gonna expect you to come in and kind of learn the movements and learn how to dance to it, right? Definitely improves our cardio because again, we're constantly moving throughout that class period. Okay? They might take a break here or there, but in general, you're getting your heart rate up and it's staying up for that duration of the class. So again, Zumba, you're gonna get in there and do the dance. 45 minutes, boom, good to go. Improved our heart health. And like I said, these classes are a lot of fun from what I've experienced and heard, right? Number 2, we have martial arts. So this is kind of a new up and coming kind of thing. And I say martial arts, we could also include some boxing in there, but you know, you're talking about different MMA style classes, you're talking about kickboxing, you're talking about, like I said, maybe boxing in general, right? So there's classes that take that same mentality, that same environment, use the same equipment, punching bag, maybe some gloves, and then you go in and you do that thing in a structured way, right? So again, your coach, your instructor is trying to elicit certain results based on what movements, what punches you're throwing, what kicks you're doing, how long, how hard, that kind of stuff. And so kind of a fun way to take your mind off of doing the exercise, the workout, and that you're just having a little fun doing some martial arts. With that, some of the benefits include like improved conditioning, obviously, balance, agility, coordination, reaction time, all those things. Because again, you're maybe doing something a little bit more structured, a little bit more geared towards, I want my leg to get this high and kick here, so we got to learn and train our bodies to do that. Punching here, doing the speed bag maybe, things like that. And so that hand-eye coordination, balance, all those things kick in. Really good core workout as well, because when we're punching and moving around like that, maybe even going against some other opponents, we have to be really strong with our core. Okay? One thing to note with martial arts type classes like kickboxing and boxing itself, they're seeing a real big improvement and benefit in individuals with Parkinson's disease. And so those guys are going in and they're working on their punching and different things like that. And so with that, they've seen some good improvement there. Okay? So something to keep in mind. Moving on to functional training. So this is another word, another phrase that's kind of been kind of trendy, kind of popular. Functional training, basically we're just, think of it like you're training to prepare yourself for what you do day in and day out, right? So if I'm just kind of I work, go to my job and I work, I go home and I'm maybe doing a few chores around the house. Well, what kind of movements do I have to be able to do that stuff, right? And so that's what functional training means, okay? So it's just preparing our body for the activities that we do. What we're doing is trying to mimic those movements. So, you know, again, with me, myself, being a trainer, I've got to be able to move and bend and twist and do all those things. So I'm going to do workouts and exercises that help me stay flexible, strong, right, in good condition, things like that. So I'm kind of a bad example because I got to kind of be able to do it all, right? But let's say you're a landscaper, right? So you got to be able to have the strength and the mobility to get down low and be able to bend and twist and pick up things, turn. So you might do some rotational type exercises. Golfing, those guys, they always are constantly working on power transfer, rotational movements through their core. So they're strong legs, strong core to be able to strike the ball and hit it far. So all those things, again, so this can be a really simple. I got to do chores at the house, so I need to be able to squat. I need to be able to lift over my head, and I might need to be able to lunge a little bit. Okay, we can work on that. We can work in those movements. Or it can get as complex as performance-based training, right? Specifically, I'm a amateur pickleballer on the weekends. I want to be able to step hard and quick, go overhead, right? So you can mimic those movement patterns in your workouts. And that's what these functional training classes do. Okay. Cool thing about them is you're going to probably get a wide variety of equipment. So we're talking about using just our body to maybe some free weights like dumbbells, barbells. They might have cables or suspension trainers, things like that. In my classroom, I have water ball equipment. So little kettlebell kind of looking balls that are filled with water, so you get different kind of resistances and forces impacting it as we go through different movements. So kind of a cool, fun way to do some of the same movements that you would do maybe traditionally, but now we're adding a little different element to it. So it keeps it very kind of fun and engaging that way. All right. And then lastly, looking at community sports / online virtual options, okay? So, of course, with community sports, it's not necessarily a class per se, but there has been kind of an uptick, a trend up in popularity among community sports. Mentioned one of them already, but like pickleball, we kind of did a presentation just last month about pickleball, right? Training for that. But pickleball, racquetball, tennis, those kind of sports, you know, those court ball sports, soccer, volleyball, things like that. So all those different recreational type activities are starting to really, people are kind of coming back to some of those and going, man, those are fun, they're engaging, I'm exercising, that's all good, right? So let's do some more of that. So we've really seen a trend up in that stuff. And then a lot of places now, especially thanks to COVID, we have virtual options, right? There's a lot of online classes that you can take, whether you're at home, you can watch it on your phone, you can do it outside. I mean, there's all sorts of things, memberships that you can do just for virtual classes. Certain gyms will have virtual options that you can go into the classroom, plug in pick what you want to do, and then you just do it right there on your own. So it's not necessarily a group class, but you're getting the benefit of the guidance and things like that, and it's in a class setting or environment. One place that's recently come in here is Hotworks, and they're kind of interesting. I haven't personally been over there, but heard some good things. People are really seeming to enjoy that, and they're kind of small groups. I think they have little pods that maybe up to 3 people can get into, and they plug in what they want to do on the TV screen, and then they just do it. They offer spin, they do yoga, some Pilates, I think, some stretching type stuff. So different variations of classes there, different styles of classes within that building. They're located up kind of over by Lowe's and some of the TJ Maxx, some of that stuff. So kind of a fun new place that's come into Bartlesville. Okay? All right. So what are some things we want to consider as we're thinking about maybe do I want to get involved in a group exercise class? Okay? So we've kind of touched on some of these, but let's just highlight them just a little bit here. So first thing first, we want to make sure that whatever we're picking, whatever we're going to commit some time to, that it aligns with our fitness goals. Like I said, we don't want to take a cardio class like a spin class when I'm wanting to work on maybe my upper body strength or my core strength. Not that we don't get some of that in there, but there's other classes that maybe will help me out more than that class would, right? So what's my goal or goals, and do those classes, or are the classes that are offered going to provide that result for me over time and within that workout itself? Then we want to talk about how comfortable are we with the style, right? And there's a few things we can touch on here. So first of all, I always think about intensity and tempo, right? So again, faster tempo, higher intensity generally, or heavier weights, higher intensity, right? So what's the intensity level of what kind of resistances do we use? Is it mostly a bodyweight class, or is it a heavy strength training class, right? Things like that. And then the tempo can also play a part in that as well, right? I use tempo a lot to help my clients in my classes get up to a certain intensity level. So I encourage them to go a little faster with the weights that we're using, so that way they can get that intensity level up, right? So something to consider there. Movement patterns, what are they going to be doing? Do I have to get down on the floor a lot? Get down, get up. Do I have to do that a lot? Let's find out, right? Or is it mostly standing or mostly seated, right? So when somebody asks me, well, how do you do, like, what are you doing in Pilates? I can't really get down and get up very much. Say, look, once we go down, we're down, right? So if you can just get down, we're going to stay down on the mat, we're going to do our stuff, and then maybe occasionally we might get up at the end sometimes, but generally we start on the ground and end on the ground, right? So that just gives them a little comfort, like, oh, okay, once I go down, I'm not having to get up and down the whole time and do different things like that. So finding out kind of what movement patterns we might be looking at is a good thing. And then overall, the vibe, right? So comfortable with the vibe of that class, right? We talked about the difference between like boot camp and yoga and Tai Chi. Totally two different vibes there, right? So what are you looking for? That's always an important question. Can we engage with the group, or am I willing to engage with the group? Again, one of the benefits of group classes is that it's in a group setting, so we get that connection. So if I want to start a class, right, how willing am I to get in there with people that maybe I don't know, maybe I know some of them, but am I willing to connect with them and engage with them? And with that, I would suggest please do so, because you're going to get those benefits of accountability, motivation, right, support, all that good stuff. Okay? The other cool thing about engaging with the others is that there's a good chance most of them are in that class because they're trying to do the same thing, right? They're trying to get to the same place. And so you guys get to do that together, right? And support and encourage each other to do that. The other thing that I don't have listed here, but it's in the notes, but one thing I thought of kind of post putting this together was a lot of my class members, at least, they might be going through something, right? So it's not so much about connecting on what's my goal, but it's connecting on, hey, you know, I lost my spouse last year too, or, you know, I got diagnosed with cancer too, right? And so they connect on that level, that emotional level, can help each other through that. And they're meeting up and going, talking those things out and working through those things in the classroom setting. So kind of a cool deal there, right? Another good question or thing to consider is, can we be consistent, right? Consistency, whether you're exercising on your own or exercising in a class setting, very important, okay? A lot of reasons here, but I would say the biggest thing for a class consistency is that you get to know the instructor, and the instructor gets to know you, and then also, it's hard to get to an advanced stage with your movements in our classes if we're having real inconsistent attendance, right? So the things that are meant to be a little bit easier over here, day 1 of class versus day 30, well, if I've only been day 1, day 10, and day 25, 3 classes before day 30, well, everybody else is working on something a little more challenging, right? I'm kind of stuck back here still learning the foundational things. So consistent attendance helps us progress through the class, and you're kind of prepared and more adapted to what kind of challenges we might have in future classes. Okay? So it helps us track that progress over time. And then lastly, mindset matters, right? So again, we kind of talked about getting ourselves in the right headspace, and that's why a lot of instructors will have the music going, they're chatting, they're kind of right when you come in, right? Same thing for yourself though. It's like when I come in, I walk through those doors, I want to embrace myself, engage there, embrace what's going on, who's there, embrace the instructor, kind of engage with them a little bit, get my mind ready for what we're about to do, okay? And then kind of take in the experience as you're going through the class, right? So you'll get more enjoyment out of it if you're engaging with others. You're really trying to maybe learn a movement that maybe is a little uncomfortable or something you haven't done before, right? So really trying to focus in and work on that, right? And then the other cool thing is, okay, I'm going to come in, and today, if we do push-ups, I want to challenge my push-ups, right? I want to see if I can do, I've been doing about 8 of them, I want to see if I can get 10, right? Or I've been doing it from my knees. How many can I do with my knees up this time before I have to go to the knees, right? So having those little mini goals coming into class can help out as well and help you make progress. And it gets you more engaged into the class itself, right? So all good things to consider, okay? So we're about to wrap it up here, but there's a nice little cycling class if you haven't seen one of those before. They're having a good old time. And just to kind of summarize real quick, so what's our goal? What's the style that we kind of are leaning towards, or what do we think we might like, right? What intensity are we looking for? How does it fit into my schedule with the gym that I'm at, or maybe I'm looking at a gym that offers classes. Well, what kind of class schedule do they have, and will it fit with my schedule? Can I make that work? And then don't be afraid to go for it, right? Try out different styles, see what kind of fits you, right? So that way we can have a little flavor of all of them. Go, okay, I think I kind of like this Pilates class on Tuesday, and I like this body pump class on Wednesday and Friday in the evenings, right? And that works for my schedule. So you can kind of go at it like that. And I will say, I think instructors play a big part in a lot of this. You know, so make sure you're communicating with the instructor, connecting with them, and that'll help you be more consistent as well. All right. So with that, just want to say thanks for coming. And does anybody have any questions? It can be about this, or I'm an open book, man. I can talk to you about sports. We can talk about the NCAA championship on Monday, whatever. Any questions out there? Yes, sir.
Okay, you mentioned high intensity interval training.
Mm-hmm.
Is that in any way adaptable to cardiac patients?
Good question. So he asked if is high intensity interval training, HIIT training, adaptable to cardiac patients? Good question. I would say yes, but I would probably, if it were my patient or my client that I was talking to, first of all, we're going to ease into that, right? Make sure we have a good base before we try to go too intense. And then also, we may not necessarily do pure high intensity, because pure high intensity is like 90% effort or above, right? And so with that, a lot of people, even myself, I struggle to get to that point, you know, even when I'm working actually really, really hard, because it's very uncomfortable, and you know, it's hard to get yourself to that. More so, what I would probably encourage is more of a variable intensity training. So it's basically the same concept, but it's little bits of higher intensities throughout the movement. So, for example, doing a hill ride on a bicycle, that gives us a good visual of what that looks like. So maybe a little up and down, and then we kind of come down and then back up a little bit, you know. So it's short bursts of higher levels, maybe not pure high intensity rating, but close, right? So we're dipping up there, but then we're coming back down. So I would, and honestly, most people if they're taking a high intensity class, most people, they are doing more variable intensity than they are high intensity. Because I don't know if you guys have heard Tabata, but that was 20 seconds on of work, 10-second rest, so not really much rest at all. And then they would just repeat that for 4 minutes, and that's all they did. It was 4 minutes long. So it's 8 rounds of 20 by 10. And they were cooked. I mean, that was it. But it was all out effort for that 4 minutes of time. And that's really hard for most people to do. So we don't quite usually get there. But good question. I don't think it's necessarily unsafe. I just think it depends on the person and what they're capable of getting up to on that. And I would definitely speak with your physician before you just was like, yeah, I'm going to try high intensity training today. You know, I'm going to jump on the bike and just grind it out. let's make sure, let's talk to the cardiologist and make sure they're okay with that, right? So, good question. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Any words of encouragement for people who are nervous about exercising around other people?
Oh, good question, good question. So, question was, any words of encouragement or just wanted you comment on people that maybe are just nervous to get in and get into the gym, whether it's in a class environment or not, but just going to a gym with other people around. So, yeah, great question. I think, in general, most people, if you're coming into it, they're not all that concerned about what else is going on, first of all. We always tend to think that everything's about us, right? And so we walk in somewhere and we're like, everybody's looking at me, when really they're not probably actually looking at us. But outside of that, because that's kind of a mindset thing, but outside of that, I would suggest, when you sign up, ask them, hey, when's the busiest time, when's the least busy time, right? Like for us at our gym, evening time, anytime after about 4 o'clock, very slow, very quiet, not a lot of people there. So it allows you that opportunity to come in and just maybe a handful of people up there, if that, and you can kind of find your own little spot and just do your thing, So ask that question. You can also look into maybe some smaller groups versus doing a large group setting. So you could ask them if they offer small group classes or maybe just some one-on-one training. A lot of places, we don't have the luxury of doing this, but a lot of places might have personal training studios, right? So you have the one-on-one in kind of a private setting. So that way you're off getting your good workout and nobody else knows you're in there, right? So definitely things like that. I think the busy time and less busy time is probably your best bet in terms of just not running into a lot of people and having to think about that. So, good question, though. Yeah. All right. Well, unless there's any more questions, we'll call that good for today. And I thank you guys for taking a little time out of your day to come down and enjoy the rest of it.